All right, guys, here we are in ep02 of the Pwncast. That's right. This time we actually came up with a name for the podcast, and so that's really exciting. The Pwncast. But today, guys, I've been really excited and honored and blessed, really, to get to speak with Sir from the Knights Guild. And I first thing right when he jumped on here, I noticed all the UO stuff right behind him, and he's got the UO flags and everything, and even an EverQuest up there too. So we know this man's a gamer for sure. Even the shirt proves it. But Sir, as you guys know, is the Knights Guild, and they are a really, really good role-playing guild of a bunch of knights, and they like to drink beer. Huzzah!
Huzzah!
But either way, man, tell us. I don't want to tell everybody about you. You tell me, man. Tell us who you are, and how long you've been playing UO, and then, of course, your favorite beer.
Sure. So my name I started as was Sir Rendlesham. We formed the Knights Guild back in February of 2016 on UO Forever. I actually had role-played some before that as knights on various shards, but nothing that I ever stuck with for too long and really kicked up. It was actually EverQuest where I started role-playing at first, believe it or not. And I was a beta tester. I was a kid for EverQuest.
Wow.
So when that came out, I found myself in a guild that were a bunch of people that used to play MUDs, so they were very versed at the whole text-based roleplay thing. And being that EverQuest was 3D and not very conducive to the on-screen roleplay, since it was all a chat box and world chat type stuff, people were really big into emoting. And your character really couldn't reflect that, so a lot of it was imagination, and that's where I really started as a wood elf, a young boy in a guild with a bunch of experienced barbarians. And it was kind of funny, they took me under their wing, taught me that stuff, and I always just kept coming back to UO. Every time I did, I brought a little bit more of that roleplay back with me. And I can't remember the name of the free shards I was playing on at the time. This was probably back around 2004, 2005. I joined a free shard, and I had placed a little customized house out in the middle of the woods in U. And I was role-playing all by myself. As weird as that sounds. So I would multi-client, and my name was John the Devout, and my alternate character was my wife, Ezael the Pious. And I really just wanted to play out my imagination that had built up from EverQuest, build a small little cottage and decorate it and just kind of live out my life and go out and do a little hunting. And I spent a lot of time at my cottage, and people would just pass by and stop, and as they did, I would role play at them, just saying, okay, here's a passerby. I don't care how they respond to me. I'm just going to give them a little piece of my imagination. And people started repeat visiting me out at my cottage. So before you know it, they were saying, hey, there's a new roleplay town forming up, and we want you to lead it. So that's what actually got me into leadership in terms of roleplay. So that went pretty far, and I started a night guild there that we were just the Knights of Virtue, KOV. And it was a pure Trammel shard, and we wanted to create a dynamic story where a villain came to town, and we had a big story arc where we finally caught him, and we were going to execute him. So we invited him to the guild, since there was no PvP, took him to Britain, the West Britain Bank, and executed him on top of the bank, and we got kicked off of the server. Because the server owner did not want any kind of violence or anything like that.
What?
So that started, yeah, it was crazy, because I thought, we brought so much dynamic to the server, and we built up this huge town. And
so was there PKing on that server, or no?
None at all. No, it was a pure Trammel server. So that was the thing, was we found a loophole to where we could kill somebody, and apparently that was too violent, and the server owner asked us to leave. So we said, okay, respectfully, we'll take off and find a new home that's better suited for us.
Wow.
As purveyors of the virtues and justice. So thus began a quest of my own to find a good server that was a home for us. So we bounced around quite a bit there with me and just one or two other guys until they kind of trickled off. And eventually I found UO Forever. And I started off there by myself. And down south of U in Old Ratman Valley, right outside the Orc Caves, is where I placed a couple small houses.
Just like your old house.
Yes, right. Yep. So that was the home of the Knights. We planted ourselves outside of the Orc Caves, and sooner or later, one orc would show up. In fact, it was funny. Every day before this guy would go to sleep, he was European. I was working a midnight shift, so I was getting home and just logging on. And every day we would have a 1v1, me and him, and it would go forever. And before you know it, more Knights started showing up, and then more orcs started showing up, and it became... Ratman Valley became a battle zone. It was just nonstop. And that was where we really picked up some of our reputation and some awareness spread, and that's where it all began. So
and then you earlier at the beginning you spoke about MUDs and text-based games and stuff like that. Did you say that you played any or had you before?
No, actually, the very first MMO that I played was a game called The Realm by Sierra Games. Mm-hmm. And that was, again, it was a chat box kind of thing. So it was half MUD, half interface-based.
They had a few like graphics in there, just like text-based graphics, right?
Yeah, well, it was very cartoony, pixel graphics, flat, 2D, and it was unique how they did it, actually. Yeah. It was a pretty cool game, but that's what really caught my interest in playing with other people, because before that it was Diablo, and I can remember learning about UO. Me and my best friend growing up, we were playing Diablo, and his older sister, she got Ultima Online, and he's like, man, you got to check this game out. And this is back, the days of dial-up and AOL, and we spent the night at his grandma's house. Stayed up all night running around as a ghost because we had no idea how to get rezzed, and we still, even as a ghost, it was a great way to explore the world, without the danger of being killed because we were already dead. And
I can remember it's funny because it was just last night I was talking with somebody about corpse runs and how running, you would die out somewhere in the wilderness, and like on Outlands, they've got the healer caravans, and you can find it on your map, and you can res rather quickly, right? Gone are the days of running around for hours in whatever place just to realize that you can't find a wandering healer, or even worse, you ghost over a wandering healer corpse, because remember you could kill them on the retail servers. And I just remember I thought it was the coolest thing ever to wear a wandering healer robe. I just thought that like I was a badass if I had a wandering healer robe because I killed him. And man, that's funny. I like that.
Yeah, they were tough. They in terms of EverQuest, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of listeners out there that have played it, but it was a lot like the Priest of Discord.
Yes.
People would try to kill him, and if you killed him, that was an achievement. I remember the wandering healers; they were tough.
Yeah,
they were tough to kill. So it was a kind of a badge of honor if you could run around in that cool robe.
Yeah, I mean, but it was always so neat too because if somebody had like GM swords, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, he's a GM, he's got GM swords. It wasn't, how it is now where it's like you don't even leave, Prevelia or the training dummies until you're fully decked out on your character. You don't step into the dungeon yet. I mean, some people do, but it was just a everyday thing of life where people would be like, oh, well, I'm almost 85 swords. And that guy was tough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I looked forward to those titles of journeyman and adept and expert and master. That was big achievements back then. There wasn't, with Razor, that changed so much too. I mean, I remember I asked my dad if he could get me, something to basically to cheat with, and it was called Easy Macros, and it would just loop constant, it would record all of my mouse and keyboard movements back in the day. And that was, I thought I had an edge on people just having that because I didn't have to manually sit there and do everything. But
we had the the freeware version of it, where it would only loop 100 times. So like
Wow.
we would record ourselves for like 5 minutes, right? Doing the same thing for 5 minutes, and then it would loop for 100, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that was kind of our workaround for it. But yeah, man, we would I remember that program. It was now, you know, with Razor, it's like you can have 3 accounts running a macro, and you don't even have to have it like on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I
And doing
can
other
do my
things in the background. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very
It's a
helpful.
totally different world, man. And I
It
feel
is.
lucky that we got to experience the old ways.
Yeah, 100%. There was that sense of adventure and like unknowing, and you know, this is like terrible to say about myself because this is what I do, right? But you know, I feel like people that make these guides and how tos on stuff, I don't want to say they ruin the game because the information would be out there, right? But
Oh,
at the
yeah.
same time, it like that access to information at our fingertips, it does sort of ruin that sense of adventure, because now your
Yeah.
sense of adventure is just, okay, let me go on YouTube and look up how to do this. Whereas used to, you may have stumbled upon this information and then shared it with your friends, which would in turn be me, and that's how I would learn that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it was just so
Exactly.
much more. Information was such more of a scarce resource,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah, and
now
if
it's
you
in
were
abundance.
privy to some kind of information like that that wasn't really spread and people wanted to kind of keep that edge to keep it down, you
Yeah.
felt like part of the elites, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really
Yeah.
cool. So I mean, what like initially got you? How did you find Outlands? You know, what you said you were on Forever eventually, which I
Yes.
remember Forever. Forever was a great shard. It still is. It's still open.
Yeah.
And then yeah,
So that's a deep question. So we started there, and it took a lot of working with staff there to kind of facilitate some of the things that we needed to really put on the performance and entertain people in the way that we wanted to. Because I've always believed is that with role play nowadays, I mean, back then it was role play, everybody kind of naturally role played. I remember the first time that I ran into somebody, they said hail to me. And I didn't know what the word meant, but it somehow made sense that that was a greeting. So there were some phrases and things that people did that everybody was kind of role playing a little bit. But then you had the hardcore guys, you know, especially the orcs and stuff like that, that really defined it. And you could see that entertainment value that they brought everybody. And everybody, even if they were power players and casual, you know, chat and stuff like that, and speaking out of character, they really appreciated and had a lot of respect for the real role players, people that took it to another level. So I always kind of believed that to be a successful roleplay guild, one aspect that you really have to always try to facilitate is some kind of entertainment value for everybody else. And in doing that, one of the main things that I really wanted to do was put on events, public events. It would bring in outsiders who weren't role players, but they would actually get to interact with us, see what role play is about, because a lot of people have a pre-notion, I think, that role play is a nerdy thing, slows you down, kind of, you know, you have to, there's certain requirements to speak like Shakespeare or
yeah,
something.
yeah,
It really isn't. It's just a matter of immersion and, you know, only speaking about the world that you're in. Your character is in Caesarea, so that's all that your character should really know. Some people want to take it farther and play with things like line of sight. You can't see what's behind a wall or a door, which is really cool, but
Mhm.
there's many different levels of it. And I just wanted to be able to interact with the public in a way that exposes them to what role play is. And even if they don't become role players, there was a certain amount of entertainment they would get out of it and even participate with us just for the time being.
Mhm.
So one of the big events that I wanted to do was jousting, and we started doing this by ourselves up on top of the old towers that had the wings off of it. That was one of the longest spans that you could find for a jousting lane. So we would set it up, where it was two-handed weapons, because we wanted to be inclusive. We didn't want to restrict it to just, swordsmen or just fencers with spears that looked like lances. What ended up happening was the Warhammer always won because it was a stam drainer. It would drain people's stamina so much that on returning jousts, some people wouldn't be able to swing that round. No stamina. So we petitioned to the staff, and finally they made us a lance that anybody could use that had a melee skill. And then it began to draw in a huge crowd of people, and we'd put up, 250K to the winner, and eventually it got so big and so popular, we were giving out $1 million a week every Friday night.
It was on Friday, yeah.
Yep, Friday night fight nights. So
and you did that on Forever as well, right?
Yes, well, that was, it mainly started on Forever.
Okay,
so that was kind of our big thing that drew the crowd of people that were interested, people that just wanted to get to know the guild, and people that just wanted gold. It was a quick and easy way to make gold if you won. We were happy to give it out if you'd show up.
Me and Beltane participated in a few of those actually over on Forever. Yeah,
cool, very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's where it kind of started. But then it got a little bit deeper to where we wanted to put on some really interesting and different kinds of events. One of which is an example, because we had a big war with the orcs. It was a friendly thing on good terms, and it really brought a lot of people in. People would join and make orcs just for the battles, or knights just for the battles. But we wanted to do things that relied on participation too. So things like Hailstone Castle. Hailstone actually came from UO Forever, where we wanted to build the walls, but we had to do a quest for it, which was 5 pack horses running from Britain that were bringing the building supplies to our empty plot. That we had, fortunately, staff really appreciated what we were doing there, and they put an empty plot up on top of the mountain for us.
Mm-hmm.
So the event was we had to get at least 2 or 3 of these horses to Hailstone alive to be able to deliver the goods to build the castle, and it was a giant
That's so
battle.
cool.
And yeah, orcs were popping out. They would set up on the road and wait for us and pop out and they would all go
little ambushes.
Yeah, it was great. We had a lot of participants, a lot of great people in that time. So we did that, and eventually Outlands, the word started spreading that this new server was going to be out, and a lot of people took a lot of interest in it and started talking about it. And I started getting nervous thinking, oh man, this is going to take away a lot of our community, not just the guild.
Yeah.
So I tried to kind of run it on both servers and prepare for the launch that it would be, I didn't want it to be a split. So I tried to tie 2 servers in together with one roleplay story that this, as the story goes, from UO Forever, there was a strange portal that appeared out in the oceans of Caesarea. And we sent out knights to investigate it on vessels. Well, the whirlpool, it actually formed a whirlpool that sucked them through and transported them to the Outlands. And there was a time differential there, which kind of led into the lore of our existing guild on Outlands now. That time differential created, time moved a lot faster in Outlands while we were still on UO Forever. So, a week would go by on Forever, but 100 years went by on the Outlands. And we had no way to communicate. So eventually we decided, we don't know if our guys are okay in there. We need to all just kind of amass and move in there together. And that was from the decision of having to decide that we really can't run the guild on 2 different shards successfully. We have to put our focus somewhere. And the majority vote wanted to do Outlands. And to be honest, after exploring it, seeing the map, seeing all of the different mechanic changes, how much attention was going into it, just how much staff and the developers were interacting with the community.
The passion.
It really, it was amazing. And I thought, this is the chance to get involved in a shard where, not saying anything bad about UO Forever, because those guys were really great to us.
Yep.
But this was a way that we could really get in there, do our thing, and help write the history of a shard, all of the lore as time progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And the main goal was kind of immortalize the guild, create a piece of history that we belong to, that we'd be remembered forever for. So that was kind of the transition between the two servers there. And when we first got to Outlands, we landed on Nucero Island, and we wrote lore that the dig site outside of the dungeon, that big knight statue, was the Knights of Yore, the first generation of knights that went through that portal. And something happened to where they disappeared, and it was our mission and our quest to dig up this, whatever was under this dig site, and find out what happened to our long lost brothers hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Only to discover that if you read the lore notes, the pages that are based on Nucero, which you covered there before, it's really cool. Thanks for that. It's all based around the Knights Guild, that we had first dug out that dungeon as the dungeons of our castle.
The cool thing about that is that when that dungeon, when we did the Nucero dungeon lore video, like, I didn't know that that's what was going to happen, and so it was just so like awesome. And then finding more on the forums and Sir's story and everything, it was just like, wow, like this ended up being way cooler than what I expected it was going to be. And it's super cool, man. That whole story and how it transitions into Outlands and all that. So I mean, props to that whole thing, man, because it brings life right to the server and to the lore and things like that. And us as gamers, maybe not as much us, right? Because we obviously are getting excited talking about this sort of thing. But I think us as gamers, a lot of times, that's easy to like overlook the story, the lore behind certain things. But when you do actually take some time out of grinding the experience for whatever game it is, and you look at the story, I mean, there's some really cool things that make immersion really happen, and you can immerse yourself into it.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about roleplay, is that it gives you something to do and create in between the grind. You get a break from all that stuff, and you get involved in an event that's going on, or you become part of a story that somebody else is writing, or you can just go out and create your own. And there is so much content, especially for the amount of lore that they put in to the shard whenever it launched without player contributions. There's so much there to latch onto. And even it's almost like they left gaps in it for players to fill. Which really, I mean, that just said to me, like, this is the opportunity we've all been waiting for to get involved in. And staff, before they brought in like Eric Gray and Atropa, I mean, they were really good about it. They were great listening and giving us some attention. And I don't mean that like they gave us anything special. It was just that they listened to what we wanted to do. And they were receptive and open to our requests of having us written into this lore that is just, it's as deep as any other AAA game out there.
Yeah, with a quicker turnaround for stuff that you want, right? You don't have to jump through all those corporate loopholes. And I think that it is kind of funny, because it's like Outland specifically just has so much content that always comes out. Whether it's for PvP, PvM, role playing, just clothing, right? Pixel crack. And they do it so fast. And I've often wondered, like, how is it that this team of X amount, I don't know anymore, of people are able to get so much content out so fast. And then you have companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, like, that it takes months to do anything. And you got to remember too that it's a giant team, and they could probably knock it out real quick, but there's all these little, okay, sign here, get this approved here, take this to this department and let them do this, and they're, what I mean? And so
absolutely,
luckily we have quality people on Outlands staff and community members that just help out alike that are passionate about what they do and very, very good at what they do. And you don't have to jump through 500 layers of corporate.
Right, right. It's funny you say that. I mean, that probably is the one key, is that they have that creative freedom and to give the green light on their own accord. I listened to a lot of Richard Garriott podcasts and interviews and stuff, and that is definitely the problem that he ran into, was EA, being the gatekeepers for all this stuff that he wanted to do as soon as they found out that it was a success and a moneymaker.
Yeah.
And the volunteers that they have in the community here, I think, really help add to that too, because with UO, there might have been a lot of fan created content, but not much that actually could get put into the game, because how do you handle that with licensing and rights to intellectual property and stuff like that, where it's just a bunch of volunteers here that contribute, and if it's something good, Outland staff doesn't have to really worry about all that stuff.
Yeah.
They know the passion of the players just want to see this stuff in there too. They're not looking for a dollar.
Yeah, they just wanted to succeed and to continue to play and have a place that they call home, really.
Yeah.
Because that's, especially in role playing, I mean, that's what you're doing, is you're creating your home. I mean, you guys, you call it Hailstone, right?
Yes.
And now, is that the town or is that the keep itself? Explain a little bit on that.
Sure. So, Hailstone, like I said earlier, it started as just a castle. It was our fortress that all of our guys used as an HQ. I mean, guys probably had their own little homes, but it was just a place that made sure that we all amassed in game and could always bump into each other and keep active. So it started as a castle. And then as we came here to Outlands, we started grabbing up some land and territories. So it started as a castle, but in terms of the role play and the story, it expanded to where, okay, we had the castle, but we also wanted other buildings to facilitate some other cool things that we want to do, like a tavern. Then it becomes natural that we brought friars in, which are kind of like our mages, but they're more like a monk, a spiritual advisor, to keep us in check, to make sure that the huzzas don't get out of control, and all the ale that comes in and goes through us doesn't turn us to the dark side or anything like that. So
it's a very nice bar. I've been in there.
Yeah, thank you. And that goes to all of our guys. I mean, they do a great job at decorating and creating these buildings, and it took a long time for us to buy up all the land that we have. So story-wise, it started off as a castle, and as we kept growing and expanding, we realized that, well, we have a lot of knights to feed, and they have a high demand for ale and cheese, so we had to start a brewery, and then we had to start crops, and that's a little farmstead that's behind our castle. We say that's where a lot of our crops come from. Before you know it, it turned into more of like a military base, where you have all of these different buildings that are dedicated to actually supplying a community of knights with all of their needs. But being knights, we're kind of busy on quests and stuff, so we need other people, which we brought in townsfolk. And they're all of our alts and our crafters and gatherers and our mule characters and stuff. So it eventually turned into, if we want to support the knights in our quests, we need to have a small town that feeds into that. And as we do this, it kind of gives back for the need for people's alts and their crafters and their gatherers and whatnot. So it comes full circle to, as we grow, it only becomes natural that we became a village and then a small town. And if we could ever obtain all of the land and get any kind of, maximize everything, it might become a city type thing. So the castle itself, that's the only place really that is locked off from the public. We have pretty much a full town that we have designed each building to be a different shop, much as like you would find in a regular town, that holds vendors inside that only sell player crafted and looted items that would be specific to that shop. So, you run by the tailor shop and you know that inside are vendors that are only selling tailor specific items.
That's so cool.
In a way, it's supposed to be immersion, but at the same time, hopefully, if we can keep them stocked, it will give people the idea that, well, I need some adventurer's rope and I want to buy a commodity deed of leather. I'm going to go to the tailor shop. I don't have to search through every vendor at a mall just to see if somebody is selling some cloth-related items that I need.
Did you say rope?
Rope.
Sorry.
We'll keep the rope on the guys for you to steal there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just started off as, you know, everybody kind of wants to do that land grab, and every guild kind of has that idea that they would like a player town, but it always it kind of bugged me that, you know, a lot of these towns and people that are successful with it, it's awesome and it's great, but it's not really open to the public. Yeah. It's more or less just a gated community, you know, that you can visit and look at and marvel at the stuff that they have, but there's not much to interact with there.
Right.
So we wanted to make this place as open to the public as possible, and our guys were nervous at first when, you know, I said, hey, we're going to turn all of these buildings public and let anybody in at any time. And everybody's, you know, like, uh-oh, what are we going to do when I'm trying to deposit my loot in my house and stuff? And, you know, we found a lot of security workarounds for that. And yeah, I think in the end, it's going to be worth it anyway. Even if it turns into a place that's just crawling with reds, always looking for, you know, shoppers and role players to kill, that's a good thing. That's activity. It creates a hotbed for action and emergent role play to happen, and hopefully it becomes a good service to the public too.
I saw the I actually got to participate a little bit in the there's the caravan, right? The little wagon with sorceress Rizelle. Yep. And I got to do a reading, and that was a lot of fun. I just walked up there. I walked up there, knocked on the door, and got to sit down, you know. And she was like, "What can I help you?" And I was like, "I'm here for a reading. I've heard of this reading." And we went through and basically, you know, she would tap on the little skull candle, and it would like emit blue, you know, like light and stuff. And she would ask me hypothetical questions, and I would answer them as truthfully as I could, right? And then, you know, she gave me my reading at the end, and it was a lot of fun. I really liked it, but I mean, I get into stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like that whole like immersion and things, and you know, it was a lot of fun. Are there going to be other like, or is there other different buildings with that same type of something similar?
Yeah, so that Rizelle, the sorceress, that was our kind of homage to the old Ultima games, where at the beginning you would always find that gypsy wagon that you had to go in, answer those questions, and find out what virtue your character aligned to best, which often would dictate a lot about your character. You know,
that's true. I didn't put that together. That's true, though. Yes, yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah,
that's what it was all about. So, and the guy that we have do that, I've known him for years, and he is a huge Ultima series lore fanatic. This guy knows so much about it. So I was like, man, I can't think of anybody that would be better for this job. And so far, everybody that has had a reading done is just like, man, that was so awesome. I got so into it. You know, it might take a minute, but holy cow, did he do a good job and really drew me in and had me thinking. And by the end of it, I was thinking, oh, man, you know, I wish I would have answered something a little bit different to get a different result. And that was kind of the feeling you had throughout the series whenever your character was, you were done with that and your character was determined by that. But that's the cool part of playing a role. Now you have, you know, an idea more about your character, and the virtue reading that he gives is very, I would say it's very accurate to the old ways and the old possibilities and options. Yeah. So that's just one thing that we have that's interactive in the town. Another thing that we have is, and I'm sure other people have probably done similar to this, but we have set up quests where there's a vendor that sells books that have quests within them. And a lot of it involves going out, doing something, taking a screenshot of it, and then sending it to myself via Discord so that you get your reward or the next part of the quest. And each time you progress through the quest, the rewards will get greater and greater. So the point of it, though, too, is kind of trying to stay true to Lord British's real intent of the game with when he included the virtues to try to get people to be heroic types and be good people and do good things. So at the end of a quest line, it's not just a reward that you'll get. Hopefully it's the experience along the way that kind of puts you into a different role than you might not have played before and gives you a good idea of what being a true blue character is all about, so to speak.
And is that part live now? Like you have quests?
Yes, we do. There's a guard tower that has a barkeep at the bottom of it. And, the barkeeps, if you give them some gold, they'll give you tips.
Yeah.
Or they'll give you they'll have a catchphrase or something like that. So we set ours up to tell you what the phrases are to get information from the barkeep, and he'll tell you if you go up on the roof, there's a quest giver up there that will offer you different types of quests. And right now, this is all pretty new. So we have a couple basic quests on them right now, but as time goes on, we're going to develop more quests and bigger and better rewards and document these as people submit their success and completion of the quest. We want to document them and show them to the public that, there are ways, player driven, that you can have quests in game, but they're not like the whole, here's a waypoint on your map. Go there and just
go kill.
Yeah.
Go get 5 Mongback wings.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. That's so cool. And anybody can go there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not just Sir or friends.
Correct. Correct. These vendors are open to the public, and if they get low on their quests, the books, I restock them. I will update them periodically with new quests that have new rewards. Yeah. And hopefully it's a good thing. I'm actually curious to see, how many people might latch onto this that don't usually roleplay, but find themselves like, oh, okay, this is cool. I don't have to constantly roleplay on my tune. I can submit something, to this guy. He tells me to message him on Discord for my reward and see how they present themselves. Especially, if it might be a murderer who starts to do the quest and find out that he's doing good. That's a neat way to say, like, the virtues will purify you, yada, yada.
Yeah. Kind of stuff. I think a big realization for me was when I really tried to get more into the role-playing community here on Outlands. It started with Vile, right? Yeah. And I even made a video over it, and it was just I was a little, I don't want to say worried, but I was like wondering, like, man, am I going to say the right things or am I going to say the wrong thing? And are they going to be like, no, he can't come back, he's not good enough, or you know what I mean? But and I just said what I could, and then when I didn't really have the right role play terminology to say, I just said what I could, whether it was the right thing or not. But never once was anybody like, no, dude, you can't say that. You know what I mean? Or anything. It was just like, it was all, everybody was so welcoming, and not just in Vile and Sir. I went to a knighting ceremony, and then we went and killed the Omni afterwards, and it was a wonderful time. And we Irk, obviously, like all the role playing guilds, every single time I've had an interaction with them, not just to me but to everybody out there who may be a guest or whatever, has been extremely welcoming and not judgmental in any way, shape, or form. And just like you said, you can get as immersed into it as you want, or you can stay on the back and just kind of observe and maybe poke in every once in a while. There's no like rule to it at all. I have a character in Urk, and I might do an event with them like once a month, and never once have I been said like, hey dude, you're not really playing much, we're about to kick your guy out of the guild, or anything like that. They're just, when I show up, they're just like, hey, what's up, Putar? You know what I mean? Or Grievous, actually. But
it's what I always relate it to is kind of like the old D&D sessions at the table. It's it's hard to get everybody together at the same time, but when you do, it doesn't matter how long it's been. It's awesome. It's magical, you know. Sometimes guys like to goof off at the table too, so we welcome that little bit of humor in there. We're just glad that people can make it whenever they do show up, and any amount of participation, as long as it's not trolling, we're happy with it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So the community is really great about all that stuff, and anybody that wants to participate and try, I mean, there's plenty of events and public stuff that goes on that they're more than welcome to come give it a shot. And one of the big things too is like the tavern nights. We had a pretty steady few weeks there where Monday nights the person that actually hosts it, Esme, she's going through a move in real life right now, so the next week or two they might not be on, but at the same time we've had guest hosts run it for us, and that's just a good place and a good time to come if you want to kind of try role play out, just see what it's about. Combat there, it's not like an open fighting thing. We welcome some bar brawls, but usually take it outside, you know. We even had the last few of them, we had fights and goals where people were placing bets outside. And,
that's great.
Yeah, so it offers
Thursday nights, right?
It's usually Monday nights.
Monday nights, okay.
Monday
gotcha.
Nights, yep. So hopefully that'll keep continuing and stuff, you know. And if it doesn't, we can pass the torch off to somebody else that might want to keep it going. And whenever you see it, you know, jump in, give it a shot, and it's a lot of fun. You'll be surprised at how easy it is to role play and get into character.
Yeah. I mean, even just sitting back and watching people, you know, you remember, you know, like in Lord of the Rings, Strider, what was he doing? He was just sitting in the corner with his little cloak over his head. He never said a word until something piqued his interest, and then he was like, "Oh, okay, I'll talk." But either way, I mean, there's even that character in there, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
What would you say is like? I mean, obviously, you guys are working on this town or city, rather. I mean, what are probably your biggest goals for? I mean, shoot, it's still early 2023, so I mean, for this year in that town and just Sur in general.
Well, we want to get the town fully functional. We still have just a couple houses left that we need to contact the owners of and see if they'd be willing to sell. And then once the town is fully functional, it's going to be a matter of maintenance. The campaign that I'd like to launch is going to involve a lot of advertising to get exposure out there. I'd like to make a town brochure that just kind of outlines everything that goes on in the town, what you can expect. This is something for both, you know, the public in terms of customers, as well as people just looking for emergent roleplay interaction, or even bad guys coming down just looking for a fight.
It'd be cool if on that brochure, Owen, if you're out there, if you could get a collectible card for it. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah. And then like you could just kind of pass those out, collectible cards of Hailstone and everything, you know, like that'd be neat, I think.
Sure. And ideas like that. I mean, I want as much as I can get, because we have guys that are even, you know, they're actual musicians in real life in our guild that have created the town of Hailstone theme music. And that would be, I don't know how possible it is, but if there was a way that when you entered the town, that sound file would kick on, that would be super awesome. Wallpapers, different medias like that we want to spread. I know it's, you know, probably not going to be the most popular desktop background or anything, but just something that says, you know, we put a lot of thought into this. We take a lot of pride in it. Yeah. We want to represent it. And as much as we can offer the people and whatever they can offer us, we want that to go back and forth kind of thing. So
I think that's awesome.
Something like that would be really cool. I mean, we've been written into the game lore with the lore notes already, so that would be really cool to have a card too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know there are other player towns out there, but I don't know any that are trying to take it to this level of making it open and actually fully interactive, and shops that are fully stocked. Often I tell all the guys that want vendors in these houses, this is a very dedicated project. Once a day at least, check your vendor and make sure there's stuff on there, because once the word gets out enough, hopefully it becomes something easy for people to find and rely on, to know that the stocks are always there. You can come here, not only just going to find the items you want, but maybe run into somebody that has something cool to offer you, starts to interact with you, offer you a quest. You make new friends, meet new people, stuff like that. We want it to really feel alive. We don't want it to just kind of be like a museum that you would walk through and go, oh, that's cool. People put a lot of time and effort into this, but there's nobody really around.
Right.
And
right.
with Castle Hailstone being at the heart of it, right in the middle of it all, there's always nights in there. There's always activity going on there. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it'll create something that people can count on when they want something to do or something new to explore and emergent to interact with.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right too. That I mean, even right now, if you recall to Hailstone, there is people in there all the time, and it's always neat seeing that.
Yeah, we try to facilitate a lot of things for the guild, and it becomes a really big group effort. We have our supply shelves that are for our new guys, and then when you graduate, you have the night supply shelf, and there's always guys contributing to it and taking from it. But we also have programs where, if we get a new guy in, a lot of our members, surprisingly, they're brand new to Outlands. They come in, they're like, oh, I played 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and I saw this, I want to give it a shot. And I used to like to role play. So we bring them in, and you start out as a page, and we have a marks system, which is basically badges that you can earn by doing virtuous deeds, and you report them. And once you reach Squire rank, we provide you with we'll unlock your first aspect if you don't have one unlocked already, any codexes you need, any supplies like that really help get your character up to speed and going, because, as time progresses and people get better and better at the shard itself just by its specific mechanics and knowing all the ins and outs, it's almost like the learning curve. It's already steep enough, but now you have to it's a gradual grind before you really start picking up momentum. So we want to get our guys caught up with that. And when, we start doing that, guys really show a big amount of appreciation for it, and they want to contribute and give back, and they'll always donate aspect items and say, like, here's for the new recruits that are coming in the future. They have that idea and the same vision that we do, that we're constantly trying to grow and become stronger, and our bond between each other is always stronger. I've never honestly seen a guild where the camaraderie is so strong between each other, and I don't know if it's just by spamming huzzah all the time. And
hey, that helps, man. Huzzah!
So, yeah, it's people latch on to it. It's really magical. But then things like at your knighting ceremony. We used to do an old tradition was called loot for the recruit, which was after the ceremony, we wanted to consecrate the ceremony in the blood of our enemies. So we would pick a dungeon, and the whole group would clear it top to bottom and gather every single piece of loot that we found, no matter what it was. And some guys on their loot run got really lucky and got some really rare stuff.
That's great.
And then it turned into, we began powerful enough to where we could actually start taking down bosses, which before that was actually an issue. This server has so much content that when we were young, we would lose members just because we were more role play than anything, and they wanted to explore the content, and they wanted to reach the end game stuff and fight bosses, and we just weren't built for it. We weren't strong enough. We spent too much time writing stories and stuff.
Sure.
Eventually, we did get strong enough to where the loot for the recruit changed from just clearing a dungeon to we go kill a mini boss, and the new guy gets all of that loot, everything that's on. So it's kind of like our way of bringing guys in and bringing them up to a level and showing them that, here's a congratulatory gift for your achievement on making night. And that always brings a sense of pride to the guys that they carry on. And it becomes the image and the personality and the persona of the guild.
Yeah.
And it surprises me how well people, talk about us. And it makes me proud to think that we've come this far and who we are. But the truth is, none of this would be possible without every member that has come through our doors and helped build this image and build this reputation.
That's great, man. Because, the onboarding process, as we'll call it, is so important. They're jumping into a community that they may either be comfortable with or not completely comfortable with, right? But it's a new group of people, and they're exposing themselves basically, and
Hmm.
just trying to meet everybody and understand the dynamic of who's who and everything like that. And then to be like taken out, basically a night made for you, a night made for you, an event made for you. Um, and then you get everything, and everybody's just huzzahing the whole way, and be like, "Oh,
Yep.
hey, we got a here's a water core. Okay, here's a command core. Oh, an antiquity drop. Oh my god, you
Yes.
know what I mean?" And then
Yes.
that new player in the community is probably just like, "Oh my god, this is so much fun," and then when it's time to log off for the night, they're probably having trouble sleeping just because they're so excited to have had that event based around them and their achievement in this new community, this new family. And so I can definitely see how that right there would build camaraderie between everybody, because that they remembered when they had their time, and then they want this new person's time to be just as magical or more magical for them.
Yes. Yes. It's a shared experience that every new generation it continues, and I can't tell you it gives me so much fuel to keep going and to keep doing what I'm doing. When so many members will just randomly message me or just say in our general chat, guys, I want to tell you these past few weeks have been the most awesome experience I've ever had in
Oh,
Ultima. I love you guys. This is great.
yeah,
Then people that even bring some of their personal stuff to the table to let us know I've been going through some really hard stuff, and this really helped bring my spirits up and showed me what a good community is about, friendship. And
yeah,
I mean, from the old days, online chat was just an amazing thing because it was like having a pen pal that was
yep,
live. And it still carries on today to where, just having these friends and these people online across the world that support you and are just so good to each other.
yeah.
It's a magical place, and people love to give that feedback. And that, man, that resonates with me and energizes me so much that
Hmm.
I can't thank them all enough. This wouldn't be possible without them, and vice versa. I mean, this is. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else than running this specific guild. It's the
Yeah.
best adventure I've ever had, and I've been playing for 25, if not more, years of online games.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. And I mean, because I mean, I'm 37, right? And I'm going to imagine
Same.
you're about the same age.
Yep.
Okay. And so, like, that really was, the start, Ultima was, and I guess the realm, right? But the start of online games.
Yeah.
And that I can just, those connections that online gamers have made throughout those times are, I mean, they really are, they're magical, man. It's something else, I there's so many stories of people that I've met through the years, and names that maybe I don't even know their real name, right? But I know their character name from whatever game it was. And me and my friend Beltane, I always go back to Beltane just because he's been my buddy since fourth grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've played every game together, and so we know these certain people, and like, man, when we sit around and have drinks together, it always ends up being stories of, oh, do you remember this guy and what this did, and do you remember him, he was so awesome, or this guy was a real jerk. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But it was
Yeah.
or this story, and and that's so awesome. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and it's funny because it's a little piece of life that it seems like only the people that have experienced really understand it. It's so hard to explain it to my friends or my
Yeah.
family when it's like, oh, I got this thing going on my game, and they just roll their eyes and they're like, oh, okay, whatever. Or,
Yep.
like, nah, you don't understand. It's so much deeper than that. There's so much
Sorry.
history behind it and experience. I've met so many cool people, and they just
Hmm.
don't really get it, but I
Nope.
still hang on to it. Like, you know what? It doesn't matter. They get it. The people that I play with, they understand. We're
Yeah.
kind of all our own little family, of just being gamers and knowing what that experience and that true friendship and relationship is like over long distance. You know, it's unique.
It's always fun, you know, like when, because you've got your group of people that you know, like your family and
Yep.
others that don't necessarily play the game, right? And it's always fun saying like, you know, they're like, hey, on Thursday, do you want to go here? And you're like, man, I would love to. That sounds great, but actually, I have to go kill some dragons. And they're like, what?
Right.
And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm gonna dress up like an orc and go around and yell New Gra, and I'm gonna go to a tavern afterwards and yell huzzah and bet on some fights, and then I'm gonna go steal some ropes and yell yeehaw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and they're like, okay.
Okay, man. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you
Yeah.
don't get it. There's some really cool people that I'm going to interact with and hang out. And they're like,
Yeah.
okay, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
And a part of me almost feels bad that they don't know because they're missing out on such a cool thing. But
know.
you know, it's not for everybody, and that's just
Yeah.
the way it is. You know?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit. You know, Outlands. It's 2023. You know, you've talked about kind of goals for the Knights Guild and whatnot like that. What would you like to see from Outlands, and you know, whether it be the community, the staff, just for this year, right? This is, you know, and beyond maybe.
Sure. Well, you know, for as a role player, the one thing, and Ultima Online being one of the old true sandbox games, I feel like a lot of games have taken the term sandbox and kind of changed it, where a lot of games are calling themselves sandboxes. And just because I got to experience, you know, Ultima, I feel like, you guys are, that's not really a sandbox. There's not enough sand in the game to play with, you know.
Yeah.
UO has always facilitated that amount of sand that really allows you as a player to contribute and build in that sandbox. So for me, you know, the PvP has been there, the risk, the reward, all of that stuff has always been there. So what I always look towards is more tools to be able to create more as players, because the player contribution is what makes the game and the world so special. One thing that I would really like to see is player towns as an actual mechanic. So it's one thing if you amass a group of houses together and even take it and do what we're trying to do, where we make it open to the public to use for their own, you know, however we can with whatever limitations we have. But something I think would be really cool is a town system that would allow guild houses that are adjacent and near each other to be linked together to create a town.
Oh, yeah.
And give little perks that might be, you know, a selection of theme music to listen to, you know, kind of like the prestige system, a way that you could create a gold sink with it as well, bring some of that money out of the economy and out of the game to create, you know, things like lampposts, roads maybe between the houses and stuff.
There you go.
But if, you know, that link between the houses gets broken, you would potentially lose some of that stuff.
I really like the idea of the roads and the lampposts like that, and turn it into gold.
And I've seen so Eric Gray, he does some pretty cool stuff for the roleplay community, and he'll drop things. And I don't know if you've been to Hailstone and seen the fines that we have. So the Chancellor Zibald, who has taken over Prevalia, basically has fined us for animal abuse for holding chicken fights. And it's pretty cool because right outside of our castle, we set up our fines, and there is a stack of books that are fines to the Knights Guild that's basically a threat to us, that we're expecting Zibald to march on us with an army anytime now. But things like that, and you can pass over top of it, so it doesn't hinder PvP, it doesn't hinder movement. Yeah. It's just an aesthetic that's there and really doesn't affect anything, you know.
But it helps with immersion and bringing it to life.
Exactly. So if you could create items like that and spend gold on it between your buildings, like in a certain radius, if it was considered a town, like let's say 3 buildings or more could be considered a village. 6 or 7 buildings or more would be a town, and you could scale up from there. If you were able to place things like that, or a fruit cart, you know, with an NPC outside of it that's a fruit vendor or something like that, that wouldn't hinder gameplay, doesn't give anybody any edge or benefits to PvP and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. And a PVM benefit that I thought would be really cool is if you do have a village or a town, say, maybe once a week, your town would get sieged by monsters, which would basically just be a small spawn that would scale by the size of your town. It would alert your guild that your town is being attacked. You have to come defend it, and it might be like something like
20 lizardmen.
Right, or the progressive spawns that are out there, something that would kind of be a wave by wave progression, and then build up to a weak version of like a mini boss that you have to defend, so that it's not something you could abuse. It would be like a once a week at random time kind of thing, and maybe that way it would even create other guilds patrolling and looking for these sieges going on to try to come and take over the siege and get the loot of your town. So then you have this PVM and the PvP at the same time element going on, and just something for people to really keep building towards, because UO is, it's a persistent world, so it's technically never ending. I feel that a lot of people, they play the game in a power player type way, where it's a goal to amass as much gold as you can. Yes, pixels, max out your character and all the character progression, like your aspect, your codexes, your mastery chain. After that, you kind of feel left like, I beat the game. What else is there? You can try roleplay. There's never an end to that. There's always a new story developing. There's always something new happening. If you gave players more tools that they could keep creating content themselves, that would, give them something else to do, so that when they do feel like, I need a break from that grind, or I've beat the game, what else is there to do? Well, you've got a town to defend and keep building on, and that keeps the social interaction, so that, hey, we have 5 buildings, we need 2 more to upgrade the village to a town. We have to start trying to find the owners and start negotiating. So now we have a goal to spend this gold on, and all sorts of things. I'd like to just see more tools like that, as one example that would be fair, within reason, and still allow the players to keep creating more content.
I think those are amazing ideas, for one, and then two, like, I mean, you're 100% right. So, for instance, prior to me making YouTube stuff and streaming and whatnot like that, I would always just like min-max games, and it was always a rush to just get to the end game, max out my character if it was possible, as fast as possible. Just like every second counts, because every second I'm not doing the most efficient way of doing something is a second lost. I don't really understand why I would do that, but that was, for me, that was how I played. And, obviously games would get stale rather quickly, right? Because, okay, now what, right? Or even as you're getting closer and the progression slows down, it's like, okay, now what? And then you suffer from burnout and whatnot like that. But, and I'll correlate kind of like my YouTube channel and the creation, right? Creativity to exactly what you're talking about, of building that community and building that, that town and that city, and the story and the lore and of characters and your guild and all that stuff, because it really makes the game completely different, because all that stuff, the player progression is still there. You're still working towards it and everything. I've got 17 links open on my chain. You know what I mean? I got plenty of room to go right now. I know many people that have 30, and they're just like, okay, what do I do now? You know what I mean? And so what you're doing, it's there's a lot more pride, I've noticed, from being able to build stuff and have that creativity to it. It's so powerful that I'm trying to explain. I can't explain, but I know that you feel exactly the same way, of like, it's just cool, man. You know what I mean? And so
I want to share that with people, because it's almost like I found something that I want other people to know, because it revitalizes you with all these new goals and a new approach and a new perspective to it. It's almost a new game. It's just the familiarity that you have with the interface and the mechanics, but now you can do so much more.
Yeah.
And the social aspect of it is
social aspect's huge. Yeah.
Yep.
It really is. You gain so many more friendships, just slowing down and not, you know what I mean? That's
because it's always going to be there. Those levels for the aspect, the links to obtain and unlock, that's always going to be there. That's something you can always work towards. And if you eventually do max it out, well, you've probably played enough that you are ready for something a little deeper with more purpose and more meaning. And I mean, before saying, I beat the game and going and looking for the next UO, try roleplay, try getting into even a semi-roleplay type thing. Just immerse your mind into the world and see what seems impossible really isn't if you don't tell yourself it's impossible. I mean, really, honestly, so the town of Hailstone, it's funny, we actually started on Nucero Island, like I had told you, and we had most of Nucero Island. I got an old map I could show you that I made of our territory there. And I took a hiatus for a little while. I went through a couple moves in real life, and it just didn't allow me to keep playing. So during that time, we lost so many houses. And then so many members just kind of faded off, because without leadership, you just have to, accept that your guys aren't going to stick around. So when we came back, we was like, okay, I have like these two little tiny houses right to the east of Prevalia. This is where we're going to start. And the whole entire landmass was already taken. And over the course of a year and a half, I kept finding and contacting these house owners and worked on buying. And it took over a year and a half to make one purchase to get enough land that it was like, holy crap, guys, we got it. He's going to sell it for this huge amount. We have to raise, it was like 30 million. And this was like a year and a half ago. So that amount was really hard to get to. But when we finally did, bought up all these houses, it was like, oh my gosh, the impossible is now possible. What else can we do? Let's just keep pushing and let's keep going and see what happens. And now that they came out with these graystone houses, we're going to be redoing the entire it's like Hailstone 2.0, this is another task that seems like, oh, it's impossible, but it's not. And it's something to work towards. It's a long-term goal that'll keep us going. And
that sense of accomplishment as each one gets replaced and whatnot is I'm sure, amazing.
Oh, it is. It's and like you said, it brings a sense of pride. I can't tell you how proud I am of the group effort, the contributions these guys have made, keeping their head up, even
group pride too. Like everybody has that pride, and it makes it even more powerful. So.
Exactly, and that's where, like, you see the guys that are contributing and donating. They feel like they are a real part of this, and they know that it wouldn't be possible without them doing that, and giving that. So it's
so huge,
and it is the coolest, most addictive feeling, to really chase, and it keeps that old feel, that old nostalgia kind of there in a way. It's not a new experience, but it kind of is at the same time, because these are just new territories that we haven't been to in the same familiar game that we love so much. So it's really awesome. And 2023, I'm sure, is going to be an exciting year, and so will 24 and 25, because I don't see this server slowing down at all.
It doesn't. It just keeps growing, man. It's so funny because, like, okay, so the first UO still kicking video that I did, it was like with an average player base of 1,200 people, and then the second one was with an average player base of 1,800 people, and then like this most recent one, it was like of 2,700 people. You know what I mean? It's like, when does it just keeps growing, and it's awesome because I'm still having a great time, man. I make jokes, and this will lead into our next question. But I make jokes all the time about, like, I am always looking for another game to play, a second game to play. And what happens is I start another game, I play it, I have a good time, and I'm still playing Ultima, right? But then what happens is, okay, Outlands just came out with this patch. There's this event going on. And then it's like my time in this new game that I've been enjoying is nothing. And it just goes by the wayside. And, and then maybe I make a video over that event or whatever. and it just I, you know, like I love Outland specifically so
Yes.
much, man, that it is
Yes.
really difficult to branch out into other games just because that creativity in my brain is triggered so much with Outlands, and that passion that I hear from you when you're speaking, I feel that same way nonstop with Outlands, and I can't get that with other games. I really do wish I could, man. I really do. I
Yeah.
mean, I enjoy them. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm always looking forward to a new game. I'm about to start playing Gloria Victis. It looks so much fun. I know I'm going to have a great time, but I'm also realistic in knowing that, you know, a couple weeks in, maybe a month in, or whatever, something's going to happen on Outlands, and it's going to take all my time back into it, and not like, oh, it's just going to take all my time, but like, oh, this is so much fun. You know what I
Excited.
mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, with that though, what? Just tell me, man. What are there any other games that you're excited to play or are playing, or you know what I mean?
well, before I answer that, I want to say like kudos to you, man, because what you do, I remember those first videos that you made, and I thought, oh, this guy's cool. I like his personality. And I like that he's
Yeah.
covering an old game because I really felt like there weren't a lot of streamers or videos on UO really covering the in-depth stuff. And I see the content and the creativity freedoms that it allows you to have. So that's awesome to see. You know,
Thank you.
somebody like you latching onto it and really getting involved and interviewing the community, and I'm honored to be the second guy here on your podcast. So,
Yeah.
but like you, I had that same thing for years. I would try to stay on the edge of what was new, what was coming out, and I would even look back further, like for older games around Ultima's time that didn't have predecessors that generated a lot of money, so that it wasn't like a model that other games would create their stuff after. It was just like games back then. They just did whatever they thought would be cool,
Yeah.
and they found out through trial and error if it worked. And I feel like a lot of these amazing discoveries were on accident, between UO and other older games like it, until like EverQuest came out and it was like the new thing because it was the first truly 3D world that you could run through, and it was so immersive. And I mean, the graphics by today's standards were just terrible, but my God, it was cool to explore a world like that. So I was always trying to find games that had something like that too, that brought me into it and was like, wow, this is like innovative. This is really new. And whether it was by design or by accident, this is something that really gives this game a attraction factor that you won't find anywhere else. And what I ended up finding was just so many games that they might have one idea like that or two kind of cool ideas, but really it was just them trying to pick from other games things that were already successful.
Yeah.
But that didn't get me in a way that was like, oh, this is new, this is an adventure. Every time I would run into that feature, it was like, oh, I've seen this before in EverQuest or World of Warcraft.
It's the same thing, just a different skin, name,
exactly,
all that. Yep.
Exactly. And then there was like, it seemed like there was a period where new developers and a lot of indie developers too, they were looking back to old games like Ultima and trying to create stuff. Araya, what's the new one I'm trying to think of here that just came out maybe a couple years ago? Legends of Araya?
Yeah, okay.
Like
yeah, I know what you're talking about. And they made a server that was like identical to UO, same spells and all that stuff.
Yeah,
but it was a top-down 3D instead of
3D.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of slow and clunky, and I thought, okay, I might be able to get into this.
Yeah.
But I could not get off of Ultima. I could not get away from it, to even find the time, because I've hit that point. I was just talking to another guy about this morning. He was getting ready to quit. He got PK'd over and over and over yesterday, and it just pushed him to that ledge. And I was like, man, I understand, because it's one of those unforgiving and brutal games, but here's some ideas. If you want to explore, we could find ways to increase your survivability. Let's take a look at your template. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about tracking for a minute, and different escape plans and hunting in the right areas and stuff. By the end of it, he's like, man, you are so right. I can't believe I was about to walk away from this.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking me off that ledge. And I was like, thank you for not going and
Yeah.
just listening to me, because, you're a great member and this kind of stuff. I'm telling you, man, you're going to go off and try to find another game, and it's not going to happen. You're going to fall back to UO.
Yeah.
That's, the passion is so deeply embedded at the root, at the core of the heart there, that it's what everybody always says, like, I just keep coming back to Ultima. I keep coming back to Ultima. So honestly, I just quit looking for other games.
That's okay. That's a good answer, man. I get it.
Up, I tried it for years, and I tried different genres too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Space Engineers was a cool one. It was a completely different theme, in outer space and survival based and 3D, and it was pretty cool for a while. But again, it just didn't have that finite persistence that UO does, where it makes you think like every second I'm not there, I'm missing out. The world and everybody else in the guild is progressing without. I got to get on. Yeah. I got to find time.
I think for me, it's the different. Like I can go to Aegis and it's still going to look like Aegis, right?
Yeah.
But what'll happen that's different is that there will be somebody different there, and I may have an interaction with them, and it's not going to be the same as the interaction I had with the guy that was there yesterday, right?
Exactly.
And that right there is what creates that constant content, even when there isn't new content, right? So like the factions just dropped, right? Now, I really enjoyed factions a lot, but not everybody has done factions or even plans on doing factions. And that's totally okay. But they're still getting new content just because of those player interactions that constantly happen. And like if I go with my guild and we go to kill Petra Main, and then all of a sudden here comes Face, and they just roll in with 10 reds, and we're suddenly defending it against them. And it like creates this, you know what I mean? Like this, I can't explain it, but it's just so like, you don't get that in other games. Now I do remember in EverQuest, I played on Ralozek. It was the PvP server. And there was those interactions. And that to me was so cool, because we'd go kill a boss, but then all of a sudden, here comes the enemy guild, and they would just wipe us. And then they would camp our corpses, and it was terrible. But and they'd take the boss and all that. And so those player interactions will always be the games that I cling to. And so now it's even like where, I played Mortal Online 2, I guess a year ago when it released, and it was, the game itself was cool. I just couldn't do the travel time. But my favorite thing about the game, and what really made me enjoy it, was the voice over the IP, the proximity chat. And because once again, it goes back to those player interactions, and it's just so important to me. I got one more easy question for you, man. I mean, who, if I've went with Bear, was the very first one, Barely There. It was such a good time. I really enjoyed it. Now I've met with you, and I've really enjoyed that. I feel like we had a great connection in the passion sense of things, and I'm actually really motivated to do my Whiskey Saturday stream here in a couple hours now, and continue pressing on with more content and stuff. So like talking to people and feeling that passion is always, it's such a good feeling, man. You know what I mean? Because there's that connection and dare I say it, that brotherhood. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep.
And so thank you for sharing your passion with me. It's
thank you for
it
having
feels so
me,
good. But who do you, if you could pick the next guest, who would it be?
Okay, so I know this sounds crazy, but in all honesty, I know this guy is very open to people that contact him about his very own game. I would contact Richard Garriott, or British. I kid you not. He's my childhood hero. I can't think of anybody else that came as close to him, because he was, a player in his own game, and it was the coolest game ever. And to me, it still is. I understand that a lot of people would rather play that theme park thing. But for the idea that it's UO is still going and he's moved on from it, it was one of his huge passions. And I've heard him do so many podcasts with so many different people and so many interviews. And in fact, even on UO Forever, they've had him come on multiple times. And I can't tell you how honored I was. They asked us to, host jousting events for him, Raph Coster as well. Raph's a great guy. He's really active, though still in development, so he's probably a little harder to get a hold of. But and then just to get to play beside Richard Garriott was a dream come true, man. I didn't get to talk to him personally, but I know that he's really open to that kind of stuff, and I would say shoot for the stars. That'd be a great way to bring attention to the new podcast that you're doing, to a lot of the old videos that you've already made, and for the future, I think that it would really bring a lot of attention, help you, because what you're doing is great for the community. It's great for UO in general. Yeah. So to have a guy like him, and I think if you really kind of sought out some deeper questions from the community too, I'd love to answer them, because like I said, I'm a fanboy. I've listened to so many of his interviews, and a lot of people ask the same questions, and I'm sure he's probably happy to answer them, but more looking for the deeper questions that really dig into his memory bank that I'm sure he holds as dear just as much as any player that experienced this new thing for the first time, because it was for him too.
I really like that idea a lot. If it does come to fruition, I'll definitely sit down with you for an hour and we'll come up with some good questions together for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to help formulate those.
And then, but something that is cool, and he might be open to it, is that my very first tweet on Twitter. So, I mean, Mustache Gaming, Voss Report podcast. He actually interviewed Richard Garriott. That was such a good episode, obviously. But
I recently listened to it, actually, and I thought that 2 parts, I was like, oh, man, this is great. 2 hours of Garriott. Yeah, it was great stuff.
He my very first tweet, Mustache had told me, like, man, you got to get on Twitter. And I was like, all right, I don't really know what to tweet, but okay. And so I made a Twitter, and my very first tweet was the UO Still Kicking in 2021 video. It was just a link drop, and I tagged Richard Garriott and basically said, thanks for the awesome game or whatever. And he just retweeted it and he liked it, retweeted it, and said some things. And now, he interacts with my Twitter now. He likes stuff. He comments on certain things. You remember the Lensa app that was out just a little bit ago, the whole AI take your portrait and AI it or whatever. Yeah. Well, I did that, and it gave me one where I'm in an astronaut thing with the helmet off, right? Wow. And it's just like his picture, because he went to space. It's like his picture of that. And I said Pwncast in the style of Richard Garriott, and I tagged him, and then he said back at you, and it's him wearing headphones with a neon background. and so it was just kind of a cool little, there's been a few cool interactions. So you're right, man. He might actually be up for that. So I appreciate your kind words, and then also the recommendation there. But
absolutely.
To finish things up, man, is there anything that you'd like to say? How can people, join the Knights Guild if they'd like to? The floor is yours, man.
Yeah. Well, if you're interested and a knight is right for you, you can contact me directly on Discord. Go by Sir with a period, #1409. You can find me in a lot of the different channels on Outlands main server, particularly the Roleplay channel there. That's a great place. The community is so welcoming to new players that jump in and say, hey, I want to make a new character and join the Roleplay community. Who's out there? Everybody's more than willing to help find a place that's right for you for whatever you want to do, whether it's, PK people as an orc, or if you're a thief, they'll send you to the brigands. If you're a dark lord of some kind, there's Vile, and if you're a chivalrous knight, that's the Knights Guild. And there's also some other guilds that are involved that are like hybrid roleplay guilds. that get into it, like the Pathfinders. They're a good one. CFC, Cambrian Fried Chicken, I think they are.
Yes. I love saying that.
ETF, they're a good group. They have a nice core of role players. Hardwood Resistance, they're a good group. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are open and willing and have a spot for you. So if you'd really like to get involved, it'd be great if you join the Knights. I'm just happy if you just join the community at large, man, because the big thing that, like I said, that I believe in role play is that we're here to entertain. You know, a lot of professional entertainers out there, they do what they do because they love to entertain. And that's part of us. We want to create content and entertainment for others. And whenever it's able to be interactive and you can take part in it, whether from the audience or join our acting troupe, so to speak, there's room for you, man. And we want that to grow. It keeps a part of Ultima alive that, you know, from the very beginning out of the gates, people just won't let die, man. And a few of the specific groups, like the Orcs, you know, they've been around since the beginning, or even the U Militia. They've always been a core roleplay group that, you know, their history defines who they are traditionally. But in today's world, everybody kind of has to adapt a little bit. So it's a little bit of a newer version, but there's a place for everybody, man. And if you're interested in it, jump in the UO Outlands main Discord, check out the roleplay channel, and see what happens. I think that anybody that gives it an open shot will be surprised and pleased at the entertainment value they get from it. And
I agree.
Potentially find something that is truly a never-ending game.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there, man. They're, like you said, the role playing community is extremely welcoming, and it's like an entire new game right there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So, well, cool, man. I once again, I just really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to, you know, sit down with me and talk shop, right? talk this game that we've been playing forever and don't really see an end in sight at all. And I wish you the best of luck with the Knights Guild and everything. I can see why they've been around so long. I can see why everybody's such a tight knit group, and you know, especially after sitting down with you and getting to know you and everything. Like I said, man, I can feel the passion from you, and that's so important for anything that will be successful. And so I know whatever your goals are that we just talked about, right? I know that it's going to come to fruition because of the passion that you have. So I really appreciate it. If we could, you know, just send everybody off with a huzzah. Are you good with that?
Huzzah!
Huzzah!
Thanks for having me, man. It was a blast. I enjoyed talking to you.
All right, man. Cool deal. Thanks, buddy.
Take care. Farewell, my friend.